So, I wanted to read and then discuss this one verse a little bit from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 22. And we'll skip the Sanskrit, unless you want to recite the Sanskrit. We'll skip that, and I'll just read the English. And this is Bhagavan Sri Krishna who is saying this. So, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Lord Krishna says, "But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack, and I preserve what they have." So, very beautiful verse, and it's a verse that is especially encouraging, for any of us who are on the devotional path, who are on the spiritual path, and just in general. What this verse is talking about, of course, very specifically, is prasada, is the grace of Lord Krishna. Being in the material world, the way that we need to relate with God, at least at first, is through His omnipresence. The idea that God is everywhere, and attempting to actually experience that fact, that reality. From beginning to end, all throughout the Vedic scriptures, it talks about this all-important omnipresence of God. That is the idea that we're not alone. The idea that we're not alone. Being here in this beautiful place, in the midst of nature especially, of course, when we are in a natural environment especially, we can feel that omnipresence. We can feel the fact that when we're still, when we're silent, when we are in nature, in a devotional mood especially, we can quite literally feel the presence of the divine everywhere, in every leaf, in every tree, in everything that's around us. And it's especially empowering to us as individuals when we know that we're not alone. When we know that in our day-to-day life, it's easy to feel alone. Very easy. For myself, of course, I'm from New York. You can live in the biggest city. You can be walking down Fifth Avenue in New York City, where on a given block there are 1,000 people walking in either direction, and yet feel alone. In the midst of all those people. It's a very easy thing to experience. But when we understand this omnipresence of the divine, that God is everywhere, we understand that whether in nature, whether in a city, anywhere we find ourselves, God is there. And more than this, as this verse is explaining, it's not merely that God is there as some impersonal presence, because simply the fact that we know that God is there, that's nice, but that's not enough in itself. What Krishna is explaining here in the Bhagavad Gita is that He's not just there with us as a silent witness, but He's helping us. He's there sustaining us at all times. We know that the primary name of God is Narayana, which means the sustainer of all reality. And when we read this verse especially, and verses like it, we can understand what precisely is meant by that. What does it mean that God sustains us? Well, let me comment on this verse very specifically, and a few of the different items in here, just for a short time. Let's start with the very beginning. First of all, Krishna says, "Those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form." This part, of course, is crucial. If we are not at least trying to cultivate God consciousness, how is it possible that we can experience the presence of God? Because, of course, for most people on a day-to-day basis do not experience that presence, do not experience that God is there as their friend. We need to cultivate this. So this is why Krishna begins with this first clause in this verse, that those who are meditating upon me, those who have devotion toward me, who are worshiping me with devotion, when we do this, it's then that we have the ability to little by little begin to experience that presence of the divine. It's the most amazing thing how, again, for most people, even though God is within every single atom in existence, most people are oblivious. We just see what we see with the eyes. We hear what we hear with the ears, not understanding that beyond the senses, beyond simply what we're experiencing, all of reality is permeated with the divine, and more with the grace of the divine. because being God, God cannot but bestow his grace upon all things, upon all beings. So first we need to cultivate that devotion in such a way that little by little we begin to finally understand that, yes, a tree, yes, leaves, yes, grass, yes, flowers, yes, all these things in nature, they are not merely the physical, but that they themselves are a manifestation of the life that's within them. Within each tree there is an Atman, and then more, of course, within those Atmans there is Paramatma. There is Supreme Spirit, there is God within all things. So it is through bhakti, through devotion, that little by little we have the ability to experience that presence. And now, let's go on to the second clause, which very specifically applies to us. Krishna says, "To them I carry what they lack, and I preserve what they have." This very specifically is talking about the prasad, is talking about the grace of God. Several things that can be said about this verse. First, it points to the obvious fact that we are finite beings. You know, if we weren't finite beings, then we wouldn't need God to sustain us. We would be able to sustain ourselves. And the truth of the matter is, we're not capable. We have lack. You know, we know that. We know that we can very easily lose that which is of value to us. And more, we know that there's a lot that we need, that we don't presently have. Things of importance. Not like a Porsche, but like love, wisdom, you know, to all of these very important spiritual qualities that we know that we need. Well, what is wonderful is by the grace of the divine, especially as we are cultivating this devotion, as we are cultivating bhakti, as we are progressing along the path. What is progressing along a spiritual path? As my guru would say, what is progress? You know, it is acceptance and elimination. It is acceptance of that which is positive, that which is good, that which we are lacking, that which we need. You know, again, just like in nature, just like with any tree. They need sustenance, they need water, you know, they need all these things. Well, spiritually also, you know, we are lacking, but what it means to make spiritual progress is to then have that which will nourish us spiritually. So, from where does this come? This comes from God. This comes directly from the divine. So, this is the interplay, this very important interplay that we see between, on the one hand, engaging positively in active sadhana, in active spiritual discipline, but then on the other hand, understanding that it's not just up to us alone. That simply on our own strength alone, we're not going to know the divine. It's not merely a matter of quantity. It's not merely a matter of, well, okay, if I can just be really strong internally, be very disciplined, and sit down and meditate for 5 hours a day, then, you know, I'll work my way toward the divine. No. Certainly, it's important to make spiritual progress on our own, by our own effort, but also there has to be the grace of God there at the same time. Both have to be there. That dynamic is very, very important. So, this verse specifically should be very, very comforting to us. You know, at times when we know that we're lacking. And for most of us who are honest, who have humility, there are times, both just in general life, but also when we are trying to make spiritual progress, when we know that we need help. We know that we need help. Well, what a wonderful thing, what an amazing thing that Lord Krishna himself says, I will give you that help. Whatever you are lacking, I myself will give you that. And whatever you already have right now that is positive, that is wonderful, that is good, you will not lose it. I will preserve that for you. It's amazing. This is the nature of grace. This is the nature of grace. That when we devote our lives to Bhagavan, when we devote our lives to God, to the divine, you have nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. You know, how many people think that, oh, if I become a more spiritual person, I have to lose everything? You know, it means I have to lose my fun, I have to lose, you know, what I think I have already, the things that are of importance. No, on the contrary. On the contrary, there's only gain. That's the nature of true spiritual life. Good? All right. This is the nature of Sri Krishna Prasada, of the grace of the Lord. Bhagavan Shri Krishna ki
Jai.
Thank you very much.